Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Against the Odds. So last week, on our Against the Odds poll, it was 5-color gods that came out on top, and the initial idea was to play 5-color gods in Modern. Problem is, I played like 3 different builds of 5-color gods in Modern, and I could not get a deck that wasn't even good. That wasn't the main goal. I just wanted to have a deck that was fun and like halfway functional, and I couldn't even get that far with gods in Modern. So at the last minute, we changed it up. Decided to go into Standard instead. So we're playing a deck this week I'm calling Majestic Gods for Ixalan Standard. A quick reminder before we break down Majestic Gods. If you enjoy Against the Odds and the other series here on the channel, it would be amazing of you if you could take a quick second, click that subscribe button down in the corner of your screen. It's a great way to support the channel and the site for free. So let's talk Majestic Gods, starting off with the Parade of Gods. We have so many gods in the deck. We are 5-color, God Tribal, and we have all of the Hour of Devastation gods to start things out. So these gods are important because they are gods that act like creatures right away. The downside of the other gods in our deck is they have to have a certain condition to be met for us to be able to turn them into real attacking and blocking creatures. The Scorpion God, the Locust God, the Scarab God, they don't have any of those problems. They come down as really powerful creatures all by themselves. So we have one Scorpion God, a big 6/5 for just 5 mana, good at killing small creatures with -1/-1 counters, also drawing us cards when creatures with counters die, which means the Scorpion God actually kind of synergizes with a Locust God if we get them on the battlefield at the same time, because we kill a creature with a counter, we get a 1/1 flying blue insect token, blue and red insect token, from the Locust God. Whenever we draw a card, we draw the card from Scorpion God, get another insect, so there's some synergy there. The Scarab God, on the other hand, no real synergy, just one of the strongest cards in Standard, can win games all by itself, very, very powerful, 5/5 for 5, reanimates creatures in 4/4 zombie form from the graveyard, lets us scry. It is just one of the best cards in Standard, bar none. So we have some of all of the Hour of Devastation gods. We also have almost all of the Amonkhet gods as well. We have 2 copies, Kefnet the Mindful, 3 mana, 5/5 flyer, indestructible. Gotta have at least 7 cards in our hand for Kefnet to be able to attack our black. Good news is we can pay 4 to draw a card and even bounce a land if we need to. We also have Ronas the Indomitable. Some kind of nice synergy with Ronas. Ronas is the Amonkhet god that is most likely to be a creature, because if we have pretty much any other god on the battlefield with Ronas, we're gonna have another creature with power 4 or greater, which means Ronas is just a 5/5 indestructible death touch for 5 a lot of the time, which is actually super good. It blocks things like Hazoret that our opponent has, not going to die to much of anything, just really locks down the ground. We also have Hazoret the Fervent, which looks a little funny alongside Kefnet because they want opposite things. Hazoret wants us to have 1 or less cards in hand. Kefnet wants us to have 7 cards in hand, although there's some really loose synergy in the sense that we can pay 4, draw a card with Kefnet, pay 3 more, discard that card to Hazoret for 2 damage, so it's basically like a 7 mana shock that can only hit opponents. But Hazoret's very strong on its own, and we basically just play based on the situation. Like, if we don't have a Hazoret and we have Kefnets, maybe we're trying to get cards in our hand. If we have Hazorets, no Kefnets, then we're trying to empty our hand. So we play differently based on the situation. We also have a Ketra the True, which is pretty nice because it's relatively easy to turn on since our other gods are indestructible. It's not that hard to get some sitting on the battlefield. And remember, Kefnet counts as a creature, even if we can't actually attack and block with it, so it is making a Ketra the True closer to being able to attack. It is turning on Ronas the Indomitable as a real creature, so even though Kefnet's the hardest god for us to actually attack with, it still does some sweet things in our deck. So those are our gods, 3 of the Hour of Devastation gods, all the Amonkhet gods minus Bantu, which just doesn't work in the deck. For us to make Bantu work, we got to have a creature die, and since our creatures are almost all indestructible and we don't really want to sacrifice them, it's just really hard to make Bantu do anything. The big payoff for our gods is Majestic Myriarch. That's where the majestic part of the name comes in. So Majestic Myriarch, 5 mana, power and toughness equal to the number of creatures we control, but it basically gets any keyword abilities on any of our creatures whenever we go to combat. So this means if we have a Kefnen out, our Majestic Myriarch will have flying and indestructible. If we have a Ronas, it gets Death Touch. Hazoret gives it haste. Kendra gives it double strike. Locust God tokens give it flying and haste. So there's so many abilities that we can get. So the basic idea of this deck is we're just going to play gods, have them sitting on the battlefield. Eventually we play a Majestic Myriarch, and it's going to be like a 12-12 flying indestructible, maybe trample if we can use Ronas to pump it. Hasty threat that's just going to close out the game in a turn or two. So the gods are basically built to make Majestic Myriarch super sweet because of all the keywords they have on them, along with Indestructible, which is just a great keyword ability to have. So this is our plan for closing out the game. Generate god value, get in damage with our gods, win with our gods if possible, but then have this crazy Majestic Myriarch top deck to just one-shot our opponent for like 10, 12, 20 damage out of nowhere. The rest of the deck, we get a bunch of ramp for the early game. Servant of the Conduit, Drover of the Mighty, help us ramp into our gods and our Myriarch while also fixing our mana. We have all 5 colors of gods, so making sure we have all 5 colors of mana is pretty important to our deck. As far as removal, Harness Lightning to kill early game threats like Long Tuskub. Fumigate's actually really sweet in our deck because a lot of our gods are indestructible, so we can just cast it even with creatures on the battlefield, blow up our opponent's stuff. Most of our gods will survive anyway. The ones that do die will bounce back to our hand on our end step, so kind of just a one-sided wrath that also gains us life. And then Start Finish is a little weird, but it is a removal spell that also puts more bodies on the battlefield for Majestic Myriarch, for our Aketra. So it's just kind of a, I don't know, a hedge to get a couple more creatures on the battlefield to power up those cards, while also giving us a removal spell in our graveyard. Mana base wise, Attune with Ether to power up our Ether Hub, Unclaimed Territory to make any color of mana for our gods, 1 Evolving Wilds, a bunch of green-based duels. All of our duels are green-based because of Attune with Ether and our ramp spells that come down on turn 2, so green is the most important color of mana that we can have because it allows us to play all the cards that fix our mana for the rest of our gods. And then a bunch of basic lands, including a mountain. As far as the sideboard, Nicol Bolas, the God Pharaoh, can come in controlling matchups along with negates. We get a bunch more removal, Confiscation Coup, Die Young, Chandra's Defeat, Appetite for the Unnatural. Depending on the matchup, Die Young, Chandra's Defeat for aggro matchups, Confiscation Coup for Hazarets and Scarab Gods, Appetite for artifacts like God Pharaoh's Gift. Death Court Scavenger gives us some graveyard hate, but also life gain against decks like Ramanant Bread. And then River's Rebuke, just as a one-of, bounce all your stuff, great against tokens and some other matchups as well. And that is Majestic Gods for Ixalan Standard. And that's our Against the Odds deck for this week. So how is this deck actually going to work? And my biggest fear is we don't have that much synergy. That's the biggest problem with 5-color gods. While there's some very loose synergy, Ronas being turned on by our other gods, or the Locust God with the Scorpion God, for the most part, the gods don't really interconnect in any way. They're all just powerful, or at least somewhat powerful, depending on the god, standalone threats that maybe loosely benefit each other. So that's my biggest worry, is we don't have a ton of synergy with our gods themselves, but we're trying to make up for that with the Majestic Myriarch, which has a ton of synergy with all of our gods. Fumigate, very synergistic with our indestructible gods. So the question's going to be, can those support cards overcome the lack of synergy in our gods themselves? Also, can we make the mana work? I hope so. I think so, with all the Servant of the Conduits and Ether Hubs and Unclaimed Territories and Attune with Ether. I'm expecting that we'll be able to have all 5 colors pretty easily in this deck. So, I don't know. It should be interesting at least. Hopefully we get some sweet god value and get to see some truly Majestic Myriarchs off the top of our deck, but we'll have to see how it goes. Anyway, that's our Against the Odds deck for this week. Majestic Gods for Standard. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, take a second and click that like button down below. It's a great way to help support the channel for free. And you can find the next video in the playlist right here.